At the intersection of lies and truth, tell me, what does it mean? Does it mean what direction do I go? Left, up, down, right, I don't know. Left my ego at the door. Now backwards or only forward, I know. Refresh, it's the rebirth of me. Waited so long, now I'm finally free. But why does it feel like...
My beautiful people, it's your man Tayanis. And right now you got it locked to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio around the world, baby.
Vibes and Vinyl is here every Friday live at 8 p.m. on iLiveRadio.com. Formerly of Toronto's FM radio airwaves, DJs Gene King and Ray Prasad are in the house once again to continue their tradition, promoting great house music to the world. You will hear exclusive releases and sometimes traveling back in time via some of the best disco, soul, funk, and house. So keep it locked and enjoy the ride. DJs Gene King and Ray Prasad have provided their listeners since 1996. Vibes and Vinyl in your face.
Join me, Uncle Funky, at noon Eastern Standard Time every Saturday for our music show, Give Me the Night, here on iLive Radio, and enjoy a nooner like no.
You're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. iLive Radio.
Hello, hello, welcome. Hi, Squared Circle with Yvette Raposo, where we talk all things boxing and life. So I was away last month, and welcome back. And it's great to be back because, you know, I was a bit removed from my boxing world for 3 weeks while I was overseas, just traveling with my family. And it was refreshing to come back home and dive back in. And I thought, who am I going to have next on my show? Who wants to talk about boxing? Who wants to talk about their career? Who wants to shed light on what's going on? And I thought it was very suitable to welcome this woman into the studio. Now, let me just give you a little preempt here, and let's talk about women right now. As my introduction before I introduce you to my very lovely guest. So women's boxing right now, if you don't know, and men, tune up here. Tune up here, because we're talking about your sisters, your daughters, your wives, your mothers, any woman that you love in your life and respect and admire. And right now, women are fighting the fight of their lives in boxing and many, many other sports right now, because we work just as hard. We have similar dreams, similar goals. We have just as big of a heart, and we sacrifice just as much. So why are we not getting the exposure? Why are we not being paid the same? The list goes on. Women's boxing was only introduced into the Olympics in 2012. Which is great. And actually, I just read recently that the International Olympic Committee Executive Board is looking at increasing the amount of viewership, increasing the amount of women's boxing for Tokyo 2020. So that's great news. So they're taking away from the men's divisions and adding to the women's division. So maybe they're onto something here. Maybe they're thinking, you know what, people are starting to pay attention because the quality of women's boxing is excellent. It is excellent. It really is. So, what's going on? There's not enough TV coverage. Now I'm talking amateur and professional. Today's guest and today's show, we're going to touch on both amateur and professional, because my guest today in studio has experience in both realms. And I'm very excited. Without further ado, please welcome into the studio three-time Canadian elite national champ with a whole list of accolades under her belt, haha, pun intended. She spent 12 years as an amateur, and as an elite amateur, and she just turned pro. This year, January, she is 3-0 as a pro. Welcome to the studio, Amanda Gallet. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I've really enjoyed our lead up to this interview today, because I had the opportunity to chat with you on the phone quite a few times.
And thankfully, it's been, I connected with you, and I've been able to just be open and felt very, very comfortable. So I appreciate that. It made things much easier. being nervous. I just shared with Yvette that it's my first interview, so I'm getting broken in once again. Now I'm going to be 1-0 after this one, interview-wise.
But you're a professional athlete. You're not supposed to be nervous, so they think. But how do you use nerves as a positive and as a benefit for your performance?
Definitely nervous always. It wasn't until I turned pro and I realized that timing is everything, and my time is now. My first pro fight, I wasn't nervous at all. In the past 12 years as an amateur, every fight I was so nervous to the point where I would like drain myself, like my energy prior to entering the ring. But something happened on my first pro debut, March 29th. I was calm as a board. I was slapping myself in the face because I'm like, are you awake right now? This is not normal. But I think the big message there was I was in my element. Wow. That was the biggest sign for me because I wasn't nervous at all, and I felt everybody's energy in that stadium, all 250 people, and I definitely connected with the crowd and made a mark. But like I said, because I wasn't nervous, that was a huge sign that this was the right thing to do at the right time in my life.
Good for you, and good for you to recognize that.
Yes.
And channel it and take advantage of it because you won that fight.
I did. And
I actually watched that fight last night. Did you know your opponent was going to be a southpaw?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I knew nothing about my opponent, so I have to give my coach credit because he does way more research than I do when it comes to the internet. And it was actually his daughter that found a small clip of her messing around, joking around with her coach or whoever it was on the street, and realized that she had her right leg in front. That was the absolute only video footage, and she was playing fighting. So I really my coach couldn't study her style at all, but we did find out that from that video she was right leg in front. The thing is when you fight people from Mexico, their record may state, 4 fights or 2 or 1, but the truth of the matter is that all can be played with. Mm-hmm. It can be scammed just like kilometers tossed back on a vehicle that's for sale. So you can't take anyone lightly, and that's not only with Mexicans. That's anytime you step in the ring, you're putting your life on the line. So I found out she was right leg in front, and my whole camp, all 8 weeks of it, was sparring all kinds of southpaw athletes. As an amateur, I have 60 fights, and only 4 of them were of me facing a southpaw. So I still recognize that, I'm a little bit novice in that area, but at the end of the day, as a professional, as any athlete that's an elite or professional, you have to be able to make adjustments, whether they have their left leg in front, right leg in front, whether they start switching on you, whether they decide to run in the ring rather than fight where you're comfortable. Every second in that ring, you got to be able to make the adjustments.
Absolutely. And I always say there's no exit sign in the ring, right? So there's no turning around.
No.
There's no timeouts. So you come out of the ring, you come out of the corner. Emotions can sometimes a lot of times leads to behavior. Whether that's good behavior, positively reinforced behavior. Now we all know, and we're all human, we all experience emotions, but what we do with them might be different from each other. Where we put those emotions, how we recognize them, and how we channel them is going to be very dependent on a lot of things. I think upbringing, what resources you have access to, mindset. So I've been thinking a lot about anxiety lately. Now, I live in the city, like right in the heart of the city, and actually just on my way here, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety. And I kind of smiled to myself, reminding myself that my guest today is a professional in anxiety. And you'll find out why, and I'll let her explain why. But the point is, we have emotions. We all experience anxiety. I don't care who you are. Yes, you might manage it better than others. However, it's recognizing what it is, where it is on your body, and what to do with it. So, sitting in studio with me, she just returned from England, preparing for her first professional boxing match. She spent 5 years in the amateurs. She has accumulated 75 bouts with multiple Ontario championships and 2 national bronze medals. Welcome into the studio. Please, Carolyn Redmond, welcome to the studio. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming here all the way from Guelph.
Yes.
Excellent. How was the drive-in?
Nice and busy.
Yes?
Yeah.
Carolyn, we're going to dive right in because that's what we do in the squared circle. We just dive in, right? We step through the ropes
Yeah.
and we just go at it.
Yeah.
Why was boxing so important to you? Why did it come into your life at such an important time?
It came into my life through, I guess I was going through a lot. I had just started at the university, and it just sort of fell upon me. Yeah.
How did you come across, did you always want to be a boxer?
No, I didn't even know much about boxing because I grew up in New Brunswick. So I played a lot of soccer, and then I moved to Guelph, Ontario for university, and tried to do soccer there, but it didn't work for me, so I wanted to get into another sport, and I found a boxing gym, TNT.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So that's still the same gym where you're still training
Yeah,
now?
so I started there, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, you don't hear about that very often, where the first place that you found boxing is the place that you end up turning professional with.
Yeah. So my coach, Stevie Bailey, he's been my coach for the whole time, and Joel Yipchuk is the owner and head coach of TNT. But yeah, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't even be stepping in the ring.
So what, like, did you just knock on the door? Did somebody refer you to the gym? Were you walking by and thought, oh, that looks cool? Or was there a thought like, oh, boxing seems cool?
Well, I did a fitness class one summer in Paris, Ontario, and she started incorporating boxing in the fitness class. And when I went back to university, I wanted to try to find a actual boxing gym. So I just Google searched and found TNT, and then that's how that started.
Okay, cool. I'm always curious because, like yourself, I mean, boxing was not really on my radar growing up, and I'm always curious what was the deciding factor or how people actually came across it, because that's part of what I do today is I try to help introduce people to the sport and the training of boxing and its benefits, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of do research. This is my market research right now on the radio. It's like, okay, how did you find, what was the deciding factor, or what made you, what was the clinch?
Yeah.
So boxing came at a time, so your second year university, you came from New Brunswick, and how was that transition from New Brunswick to Guelph?
Very terrifying. I remember I drove up with my mom and my dad and both my dogs, and we drove up, and I'm literally I think I just cried the whole time because I was like, what am I doing? Where am I going? And I didn't know anyone, but it was probably the best decision I've made. So it got me to where I am now. So
you and I spoke on the phone, and we talked a little bit about your story. And when I asked you to be on this show, I thought, oh, great, Carolyn. I met you a couple of months ago, and I thought, what a lovely girl, and she's turning professional. I'd love to shine some light on this woman's career. And then I started talking to you, and then I realized there was a deeper story. Mm-hmm. So that story involves and revolves around a lot of anxiety. Where did that anxiety come from?
Yeah, so I feel like it's kind of driven in me through my mom's side of the family. They have a lot of anxiety too, but at the same time, when I was growing up, I had a lot of bullying happen, and I also experienced, I think it was grade 6 that I went through OCD and
obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah, and dealt with all that. So yeah, I think that's where it all started too, with bullying and my anxiety levels already were
okay.
Yeah, high.
Yeah. And so what did the bullying look like? What type of, and I ask because, some people at home might have kids, they might have siblings, or they might themselves be experiencing bullying and not recognize that they're in a bullying situation, because it's very subtle sometimes, isn't it?
Yes. So mine was very subtle, or I hid it a lot. It was a lot with people that were close with me, people I went to school with, and I always blamed myself for what was happening, and I was very much a people pleaser. So I was trying to be a good person, and I was just I was kind of a doormat to people that want to take advantage of that side of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what was some of the behavior that you can recognize now that was bullying that at the time at such a young age you didn't understand? What was the behavior?
It was mainly emotional, making me feel like I wasn't good enough friend, or I would try so hard to be a good person and friend, and then just sort of get shut down, and then take it on myself as that's my fault, so I need to do something. If that makes sense. So more of like, that personal level there. But.
So it's kind of like you're internalizing somebody else's behavior, starts to become your own internal turmoil, I guess, or emotions. Yeah. Which it sounds very complicated, right? I've experienced bullying as well, actually, as an adult. Yeah. And it wasn't too long ago. Mm-hmm. And some of it was through online, and this person found my phone number, and was calling me. Mm-hmm. And anyways, it was quite an experience. And I started to do some research, and I wanted to understand this, and because I didn't want to take it on, and I mean, you were young, right? Mm-hmm. So it really did a few things for me. And I was actually also bullied when I was younger, but it was short-lived, and but I do remember it, and I remember her name. Like, you never forget your bullies, man. No. And then, so I've been curious about it, and I'm very passionate about it, because I think it's just so unfair. That's the only thing that I can come up with. It's just so unfair. And I learned, bullies are picking on people that they feel like they can pick on, because they're just really dumping their own insecurities. They're really insecure people. Sure. At the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And so now as adults we can understand this, but as a kid, I mean...
Yeah. And mine was with people that were like my best friends, or very close to me. So that made it, I think, trickier for myself to wrap around that this person isn't just bullying me, isn't just random, it's someone like very close. Mm-hmm. So I never blamed them I never really thought of it as bullying until like I grew up more and realized like this isn't how I want or should be treated.
And how old are we talking at this time? Like, what was the peak of it?
Bullying happened for me from grade 6 to grade 12.
So, wow, long time.
Yeah.
Wow, the same people? The same bullies?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, so that's like 6 or 7 years that you dealt with that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a long time. So that's, I also find that it can chip away at us, can't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just chips, and you don't even realize it. And it can really chip away at your confidence as well. And I guess it can be confusing in terms of what you're feeling, especially if you're a people pleaser.
Yeah.
As you said you are,
mm-hmm.
or were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Past tense.
Yeah.
We're going to fast forward, and this whole story is going to come full circle in the squared circle, because this is why I get really, I'm really touched that you're here to share the story with us, because there is a happy ending. So grade 6 to grade 12. Now, did you have people that you can talk to? Did you feel like you had people you can talk to? Did you feel embarrassed? What were you feeling?
I kept it to myself. I didn't feel like I had anyone I could really talk to about it, just because I was blaming myself the whole time. The thing is, like, I kept all my emotions in check until I went home, so I feel like my mom experienced like a whole different Carolyn than she should have experienced, like, because I knew that my mom would love me no matter what. She would never leave me, and I think when you have those kind of people in your life, you tend to put more emotions on them, because like I didn't have any outlet to put my emotions, or to let them go, and I guess my mom was my outlet, and I've apologized to her like just recently too, and sort of told her what happened. Just even this summer, I told her what happened, and she didn't have any idea about my bullying. So
she had no idea what was going on with you
Yeah.
that whole time.
yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
And maybe in a way you were trying to be brave and save her from the worry. Maybe you were trying to just save her from having to save you in
yeah.
a way.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so it's amazing how the bullying, kind of the effects of it has, it continues, like it
Yeah.
affects your life, has a ripple effect through our lives, and it affects the people that are around us as well, the people that we love, because it affects our behavior.
Yeah.
So you spoke to your mom. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah.
That's super lovely, and I'm sure she's relieved to understand and know more about your upbringing.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what I can only imagine if you were keeping that all inside and trying to process, how did that manifest? What happened after?
So I think, what I left for university, and it was sort of, I went to Ontario just to like start fresh and be the person that I wanted to be.
Is part of the reason that you went across the country to escape the bullying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to be where no one knew really who I was, so I didn't have any past. I could just be who I wanted to be, and it was like the best decision for me personally. But I think the anxiety and everything that comes with it has to come out in some way. And I developed, it was first year or second year, I developed an eating disorder because I think that's something I could control in my life. What you put in your mouth, what you just, there's that feeling of control that I think created that part of me.
Mm-hmm. And what was the eating disorder that you had?
Anorexia, for sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now you know did you know at the time that you were trying to regain control, or was it just
it was,
okay?
Yeah, I was just sort of like looking back, I feel like that's what happened there. It must have been some sort of like how to recontrol my life and gain control of myself.
From what I understand, that's pretty common with anorexia, is the core of it comes from wanting a sense of control.
Yeah.
From what I've read and understand. So there's so many things in our lives, especially being young, that we feel like we don't have control over. And if this is the one thing that we can control, then now that now that you're aware of this, looking back, and now that you're recovered because you've done your work, what would you say, for example, to other young people who might be experiencing this, or what would you say to your younger self at that time, that there are other options?
Yeah, and I think I've learned, and I think it was through therapy and stuff that I learned how to talk more about what's going on, because I kept a lot of things inside, and it's sort of, when you do that, you create a story that's maybe not even real, or just like bring it to another level that's not where it should be. So by me being able to talk to people about how I'm feeling or what's happening, it sort of gives you another outlook and a way to let your emotions out. So I feel like just finding someone that you can trust to just talk to, and don't be like afraid to talk to people about your emotions, because other people are going through things too, and you're not ever alone. And that's the big thing that I learned through therapy, that you're never alone. Because I did like a group therapy, and there was like 5 of us, and it was like everyone was saying their stories, and I was just like shit, like people go through a lot, and like you make it so much more than it should be, like inside, and you're not alone ever. So yeah. Well,
and that's why we talk about it. That's why we have this show, and that's why you're talking about it right now.
Yeah.
Because it's so true that I always say to my guests as well, sometimes they might be nervous. It's like, oh, what do I say? And I always tell them, listen, you're the professional on your own story, and you never know what's going to land with people at home who are listening, and they are going to take what they want or what they need to take away from your story. Mm-hmm. So group therapy, I really think group therapy, there's so much power in that.
Yeah.
Isn't there?
Yeah, there is. It's
wow.
Crazy.
And
yeah.
what a way to connect. I mean, you have a facilitator, I imagine, which is important. And then you have people sharing their stories. Now, this group therapy that you were in, was it all people with a specific eating disorder, or was it just trauma?
It was mainly eating disorders, but it was like different types, and yeah.
Now, from what was the core of the issue, is control the underlying issue for most eating disorders, as far as you know, or from what you've experienced?
I feel like it is, but it's interesting how it's the control starts, but then you feel out of control, like when you're in it, or like when you're around food, depending what kind of eating disorder it is, but there's always a control aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
So at what point did you realize you had an eating disorder? Did somebody help you realize it? Like how did you realize it?
Yeah, my mom helped me realize it.
She did?
Yeah, she freaked out at me, and like I didn't really even see what was happening, and she she was like, she made me realize and made me go to therapy.
Is it because she hadn't seen you, because you had gone away to school, you came back home, and you came home with a new body, with a different body?
Yeah.
And that body was one that she did not recognize as her daughter's?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And was it immediate? Did she react immediately?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. It was, I'll never forget that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there was a moment, and when she called you out on it, what was your reaction?
Mine was like defensive for sure. Right away, like I'm fine. But she kept drilling it in me, and made me like see myself, because when you're looking in a mirror, sometimes you don't actually see what is there. But she made me see what I was doing to my body. And just her like concern like scared me and made me be like, well, what am I doing? Like, I do have a problem. So she's like, if you want to go back to university, you have to go in therapy. And so I spent a lot of time in that second year in therapy in like Guelph. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you were going to therapy at the same time as executing second year university?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, that must have been. Some people work jobs, some people have hobbies. You're going to therapy in second year university.
Yeah, it was a crazy one that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did that affect you physically? Like as an athlete, I'm curious.
Yeah, so...
What was your energy like, and what did a day look like for you at that time?
So I feel like once everything hit me, the fact that I had an eating disorder and I needed to get therapy, a lot of anxiety came on top of that, because I was kind of scared of showing the changes of myself to people and what they would think, but also like when you're not eating properly, you can't think properly, and your body sort of tries to survive. So I went through, that's when like my really bad anxiety started, and I started on like anxiety medication, just because I was feeling like I was dissociated with like everything. I sort of felt like I was, this is the closest I can describe it, is that I felt like I was floating, that I wasn't connected to the ground, and that was terrifying for me, and I didn't know how to connect myself back to myself, I guess. It's confusing, but
no, it makes sense. Do you feel like the floating, what you're describing, comes from that place, like you just mentioned, of not being nourished enough?
Yeah, I think so. I think it all linked to not being nourished enough, and then just being like it will add so much more stress to your body, and then my mind too. So it all like linked together, and it took about 2 years before I felt like actually myself again. I was there physically after 2 years, but like mentally, it took me a long time to feel connected again, and that's where boxing helped me.
Boxing.
Sure, yeah.
So what happened? So now boxing gives you a channel, an outlet?
Yeah, and I went in there and I realized very quickly that strong is way more important than any kind of skinny or how I look. It's I wanted to do well in boxing and be able to do the workouts, so I needed to fuel myself properly, and it just brought on a new perspective for me, physically and emotionally. Yeah.
When you started to nourish yourself, what were the foods that you chose to start implementing into your body? Like, was there a plan here? Did you have a plan with your therapist, or I don't know, was it
like I had a nutritionist, but I sort of like at the end of the day I already knew like what I should be eating, and what was good for me. So I tried to just eat as much like whole foods and proteins as I could. At the same time, trying to like going through therapy, you have that voice that's like, oh, like don't eat that, like that you're gonna gain weight. But I needed to gain weight, and I needed to feel stronger, and I'm not going to keep gaining weight. That was the big thing. I was like, well, what if I just keep growing? Like, what if, So that's like part of that voice from the eating disorder that's like, oh, you shouldn't eat that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I understand that. Before I was in boxing, I did a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
bodybuilding would.
It was, it was tricky to not come out of that without an eating disorder. That was tricky. And even though I feel like I didn't, and hey, did I have an eating disorder? I might have. Meaning my relationship with food was just incredibly scientific and very, very specific. And hey, that's what you got to do. This is it. This is the sport. A lot of athletes go through this. And it's having the support around you to understand, to check in with you. But Carol and I understand that concept, because after bodybuilding, and it's similar to boxing, but it's a bit different. The diet is different. And when I finished competing, I started eating normally, and I'm talking, just whole foods and different foods that were out of my very strict diet that I was on for 9 months.
Yeah.
My body, quote unquote, blew up.
Yeah.
I filled out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, whoa, where is this gonna go? Am I gonna be able to fit into my clothes anymore? And how far? When does this stop? And I was still eating healthy, but it was just different from what I was eating before. So that was a mind bender for a couple of years.
Yeah,
a few years that played on my mind, and my body image. So, and then luckily I found boxing and I was able to channel that. But then there came a whole new challenge, and guess what that was? Fitting into a weight class.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So how did you, so hang on, we'll talk about that, fitting into a weight class. But we're talking about you now transitioning into an athlete. You're coming from this place of an eating disorder, having therapy, finding boxing. Now you're active.
Yeah.
And now you need energy.
Yes.
Okay, so now what are you telling to yourself? So you're going through this process, you're getting help, you're in a positive environment now, which is the boxing club. If you feel like you start to slip, what are the techniques that you were using with yourself? What tools did you have that helped you through, the risk of slipping through the cracks, of going back to old bad habits?
I think it was just me making a routine of going boxing and going to the gym, and it sort of helped me be like, no, like I need to be strong. And that was just a reminder. And also, like, when I was training, it was the one place where I felt like grounded, and that's what I craved, like to feel grounded again. When I, like, outside of that, I felt like I wasn't connected. So, because I think you get so focused in boxing that you have to be present and you can't think about anything else. So, yeah, it just, I think, helped me get on a good mentality to get stronger and have goals and
You know, I have a visual as you're talking, and you know, I teach boxing, and right now I'm teaching a 12-year-old girl. We're into like 4 sessions, and it's just so exciting. And somehow she got this idea that she wanted to try boxing, and you know, that excites me, right? So when I teach new people, I use the analogy of a corkscrew. So I say, imagine your spine is like a corkscrew. And, you know, we do a lot of twisting in boxing, and a lot of our center of gravity comes from the pit of your stomach. And so all of what I try to describe to people is that grounding feeling, really, because what we're doing is you're almost kind of twisting yourself into the ground in a way. So being very stable, being very agile, being very connected, dropping into your center of gravity, but of course being able to move and being light on your feet at the same time. So it's this combination of like float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, isn't it? So you have that. So I can see how for you that could transition from the floating to the feeling grounded. And it's physical, but then, you know, hey, listen, if you're not grounded in boxing and you're moving around the ring, you're going to get dinged. Right? So that's interesting that you kind of found that transition, I guess, by fluke through boxing. Okay, so now you're feeling grounded and you're noticing the difference between floating and grounded. Now you're performing. Good. So you go through the amateurs and you fought 75 bouts. That's impressive.
My coach Stevie keeps us very busy, and it's great because like the more you get in there, the more you learn. So I was very lucky to.
So you've been involved in the nationals, so you're around a lot of fighters. You have, like we call it, we have our team of people, right? We have the people, the girls, the guys that we spar with. And I guess have you been able to share your story and help people with your story? Because, you know, you might encounter other people who might be struggling.
Sort of like people that are close to me know some of my story, but it's more, I guess, like, I've never really been one to just talk about myself, so this is a good opportunity for me to share my story. And like, as I'm trained professional, learning how to promote myself more is stepping out of my comfort zone too. So it's
Excellent. Well, we appreciate it, and you seem very comfortable because I can see in you that I think you're ready. I think you're ready to become the woman that you've always wanted to be, and part of that's going to be September 7th, stepping through those ropes and living out a dream, really. And whether you like it or not, you're now a role model for other people as well. And that's a beautiful place to be. It really is. Speaking of which, do you have any role models or any female fighters in particular that you look up to, been following or emulate?
Well, my one really close friend, Sarah Hagiyaju, she trains at our gym, and she is like by far my best friend. But she's always been a role model for me, and just her work ethic, and like I know she's gonna go so far, and I'm just like.
And she's also a boxer.
So she is trying for the Olympics. In December, there's Olympic qualifiers, so she's definitely, one of my close role models. But I also got to go to England for a month and a half, and I ended up training with Hannah Rankin, which is the IBO world champ at 154 kilograms.
Wow.
And just like meeting her and her coach and training with them was freaking awesome. Like, she's the most humble person I've met, and she comes from a farming background too, and I do as well. So it was sort of like, it's just. It was awesome.
So you guys, I'm sure, had the opportunity to get real close, not just inspiring.
Sparring and just training and just hanging out.
So she was basically helping you get ready for your fight? Does she have a fight coming up as well that you're helping her with? Or
she has one coming up in the fall. It's not out there yet, but she's going to release the date soon. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great experience for you
Yeah.
to get.
Yeah.
Wow. So so the transition from amateurs to professional. This is your first fight coming up. Shout out to Three Lines Promotions.
Yes.
Yes. Hamilton Convention Center tickets. I just got my ticket. Where's my ticket? I just got my ticket. I'll be sitting there cheering you on. I'm really excited. And do you know anything about your opponent?
I think she's a Mexican lady, but I don't know much right now.
Sometimes.
But in amateur, I never really, like, sometimes I wouldn't know my opponent going in there, so it's just like focusing on what I'm gonna do is the main thing, no matter who I'm against.
So for those at home who might not know much about boxing, what the transition from amateur to professional, what does that look like for you? Did you have to change? And I mean, I'm not asking you to share your secrets because we don't want your opponent to know your secrets, but was there any, mental shifts or emotional shifts? And what makes it different, amateur to professional?
Well, it's just more like, we always described amateur as a sprint and then professional as a marathon, just because you have more rounds. But my first fight will be 4 2-minute rounds, which I used to do that in amateur until they switched to 3 3-minute rounds. But I can go up to 10 rounds. So it's just a different. I've been trying to work on a lot more head movement, and because I won't be wearing a head guard either. That will be something different. But yeah,
How do you adjust from not wearing? Is there any way to adjust from not wearing a headgear from wearing a headgear to not wearing one?
I feel like I'm not going to think about it too much. I'm just going to go out there and do it, because in sparring I want to wear as much protection just for sparring, but yeah. And
you want to prevent possible cuts
injuries
in sparring, which would affect your actual fight coming up, right?
Yeah.
So so transition from amateur to pro, and I mean the crowd might be different. How are you preparing for the crowd? Like, are you standing in front of your mirror going cheering for yourself, or that's going to be different?
Yeah.
You're in it's going to be at a convention center, like a big banquet hall. Well, it's a convention center. It is a convention center?
Yeah, convention center, yeah.
It's a large space. I imagine it's going to be the biggest crowd that you fought in front of.
Yeah.
Okay, so
sure.
How are you going to prepare for that?
I think just mentally, before my fight, I listen to a lot of music and just do my regular warm-up and get into my own space where I can't focus on what's going on around me until after the fight. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to try to not get too distracted, but just have be focused on what I'm doing and get the job done.
Yeah. Do you have any rituals?
Just a lot of music helps me chill out and get into a zone that I need to be in. No really crazy rituals, just certain socks maybe that I wear, or a certain shirt when I'm warming up. But yeah.
Oh yeah. I know you have all kinds of rituals. Yeah. All of us boxers do.
Yeah.
It's don't mess with my ritual, man.
Yeah.
Those things are important.
Yeah.
I used to have my ratty shirt, and my mom threw out because she thought it was, a rag.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, that wasn't a rag. That was my training shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have friends and family coming out to this?
Yeah.
And I heard a little someone, Girls Just Want to Box, is making up your outfit, designing your outfit.
Yeah, Chris is doing that for me, which I'm really thankful for. And I'm excited I haven't seen it yet, but I know the design and everything and how it should look. So
all right. Shout out to Girls Just Want to Box, who are getting into helping fighters look good on their debuts and more. So, and that's fun, right? You might as well make it an event. Turn it into an event, the event that it is. Yeah. Because this is, really a dream come true, and it's a testament to all your hard work leading up to this. Yeah. It's the big times.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself going in the pros? Do you think about it much, or are you just kind of taking it one fight at a time?
I'm going to take it one fight at a time. Obviously, I have goals, and I want to get to a certain point, but yeah, I know that I need to take it one fight at a time and not think too far ahead. So,
do you follow women's boxing right now?
Yes, I do.
Yeah? So what do you think about the scene and what's going on in general?
Yeah, so I'm excited because it's growing a lot, and more people are watching women's boxing, and just the boxers that are coming onto the scene are amazing. So it's getting bigger, which is really nice to see.
Do you have any female fighters right now that you're following, or that you like their style or like what they're doing?
Yeah, like a range of boxers. Aside from Hannah Rankin, like Clarissa Shields, I watch. Like even some of the amateur boxers in my weight class, I like to follow too. So yeah,
it's busy times. I mean, we're coming up onto busy season in the fight world anyways. I mean, really boxing is all year round, but the summer I feel slows down a wee bit. Maybe some fighters are just taking a bit of a break, or there's not as many shows. But then, and you know, people are out and about. Maybe they're not sitting in arenas as much. Maybe they're going to baseball games instead of boxing, for example. But come the fall, we have fights every single weekend, as far as I know, right through to Christmas at least, both amateur and professional. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of active boxers, I think more than I remember when I was fighting, definitely. So what would you say to people who might not know, like who aren't fans yet and don't understand the sport? And you and I both know that there's a lot to appreciate, and there's a lot to see in the sport. So what would you say to somebody, or I guess you must get it, what kind of responses do you get when you walk down the street, you meet someone, they're like, well, what do you do? What do you say?
I say, yeah, I'm a boxer, and I bartend too, so that helps pay the bills. But
gotta pay the bills.
Yeah,
it's not just the skills that pay the bills.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just say go watch a fight. Like it's something like different, and you can really see like two people putting their heart on the line there and just giving it their all. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what are people's reactions? What do you find yourself having to explain over and over again?
Well, if I go to work with a black guy, people are always just like giving me weird looks, or like, what happened to you? Like, or like, what happened to the other girl? Like, I just have to explain that, like, oh, I'm a boxer, and then usually people get pretty interested and just keep asking questions about it. But I get a few people that are like, oh, why do you do that? Like, but it's a passion. It's what I like. Why do you do what you do? So yeah, yeah. We get a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky walking around with a black guy. I think, especially being a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard one to explain. You almost kind of, because that also happened to me, and I had to go to work. I also worked in a restaurant to support my boxing career. Yeah. And, try to explain this to customers who are coming in who might think that you're being beaten otherwise, not in a sport, right?
Yeah.
So
I'll get like, are you okay? Like, I got someone that got really close to me and was like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just a boxer. I just took a really good hit, didn't move my head enough, so gotta keep that guard up.
So we're closing in towards the end of our interview, but I do want to touch a little bit on also your viewpoint on everything that you've experienced, and this is a lifelong journey of us learning about ourselves and trying to be better people. And you had mentioned earlier in the interview that you just want to be a good person, and sometimes it's hard to know what that even looks like.
Yeah. Because
sometimes we try to be good people. We are good people. And why do we have to try to be good people? Because we are good people.
Yeah.
We don't have to try at it.
Yeah.
This is what I'm a little older than you. I have a few more years on top of you.
Yeah.
And I've decided I don't need to try at it. I just need to be who I am, because I am a good person.
Yeah.
And now because I have also been bullied.
Yeah.
I've decided that I'm going to recognize the signs a lot earlier, and I'm going to be okay with, either cutting people out of my life, standing up for myself, speaking up and saying, no, that is not correct, or that does not feel comfortable, please talk to me in a different way. So now that you're a grown woman and an adult, with everything that you've experienced, what is your new dialogue? What's your new language? Now that you're not a doormat anymore, what's your new language?
My language is just trusting like myself, knowing that I like have a voice and my opinions are important, and that not everyone is gonna like you, but just to be who you are, like genuine, like it will take you where you need to be and you need to go. So boxing has helped me just believe in myself, and when I'm in the ring, it's just me. Like it's just me there. Like my coach is there supporting me, but at the end of the day, I've got to do the work, and I need to trust the work that I've done.
Excellent. It reminds me that, you know, we could be beaten up emotionally, we could be beaten up mentally, and for a lot of us, I mean, you hear this story, you hear many stories about how people get into boxing or any, you know, and listen, it's not just boxing, it's sport, it's music, it's whatever your outlet is, and they're, you know, they might be running away from something, they might be wanting to tap into, for example, we're tapping into our physicality, and isn't it amazing how, you know, you can walk around physically looking and being so strong, but inside have this turmoil and have these points of weakness that we struggle with. So I think it's important to finally reconcile the whole physical with the mental and the emotional. And let the emotional and the mental catch up, because, you know, it's like, you know what, I am strong. And I look strong because I am strong, because I built this, and we have to almost trust ourselves and remind ourselves that we did that for a reason, and the reasons why we did that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, now, Carolyn, what is, in this world of with social media, how do you find it a positive, or because, you know, I think about this as well, where social media could be a dangerous place for those of us who might be sensitive, and or it could be a good place because it's a place where we can have a voice and talk about these things. So what do you think about what's going on, you know, with young girls, let's say, because you were a young girl, and what do you think about how social media is feeding into or not insecurities?
I feel like you just have to be very careful, like for me, like what I follow, because there are lots of like ways like to, like a lot of, like on Instagram, a lot of posts of like people that might make you feel lesser of yourself, or you might compare yourself, but they're, I just always remember that that, what am I trying to say here? Like you can't compare yourself to the highlight reels that people post, whereas like you can find some like users that post every kind of reel of their life, which is nice too, like, because you're not always going to have good days, not every day is going to be great, but and to just recognize that people usually post their good days too, and that, I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, it does make sense. I mean, I think what you're telling us is just, again, the checking in and the reminder. Like what I'm looking at is A, and I am, you know, B, or something like that. It's like separating yourself from other people's posts, so to speak. And what concerns me as well, from what I see, like, listen, I came back, I've been in the fitness industry for over 20 years, and I was in my very early 20s, well, late teens, early 20s, when I was introduced to this concept of fitness magazines. Whoa, fitness magazines, what a great way, what a straight route to, you know, self-sabotage, or, you know, body image issues. And the reason I say that is because, you know, I finally realized that, there's such a thing called Photoshop. And, you know, a lot of people don't realize that, or I didn't realize that when I was in my young 20s, and that can mess with you, right? You're looking at this, and you look at yourself in the mirror, and you're thinking, well, why don't I?
Like that.
So now, it's like the modern day magazine, which is like social media, or where we use filters, and it's the same effect is happening where perhaps you see girls younger and younger, and it's not just isolated to girls, it's girls and boys who are dealing with body image issues, and this could lead to really big problems. So I think it's important to keep talking to our youth, to saying, okay, this is actually not real. What you're looking at is actually not real.
Yeah.
So don't strive for it, because trust me, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's tiring, and you won't win.
Yeah.
You'll never win.
No.
You know how you're going to win? September 7th.
Yeah.
Stepping in the ring.
Yeah.
And channeling all that turmoil, all that trauma, and all that anxiety that you experienced. And now you're gonna put it somewhere for good.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
Is there any other shout outs that you want to give out there into the world?
Just to my coach Stevie Bailey and all of TNT boxing in Guelph. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be even stepping in the ring. So yeah, just always being there for me. And
we always hear our coach's voice in our ear, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, what's he saying?
Yeah.
What is he saying to you? What's his line that he says to you?
Oh, just guard up and just use your jab. Head movement, whatever. Yeah.
Well, and those are good lessons for life. Just use your job, right? The job, just job. You have a problem in front of you, you have a challenge in your life.
Yeah.
I always say to my students as well, I say, the job is like the feeler punch.
Yeah.
The job is like the antenna. Feel, touch, check your distance, where are you at, pop, that's what we do with life, right? Job around, poke around in life.
Yeah.
Then you got the big boy.
Yeah.
You got that, the cross, the number 2 punch, cocked, ready to go.
Yeah.
And you're setting up
everything up with your jab.
Jab.
Yeah.
So in life, it's like, you know what? We don't always have to come out of the corner with a big cross, with a big right hand. You don't always have to come out strong. You don't always have to come with your best foot forward. Sometimes you gotta linger and lurk and feel it out.
Yeah.
Feel out your what the challenges in front of you. And sometimes our biggest challenge is ourselves, isn't it?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
So Carolyn, thank you so much for coming in today and
thanks for having me. Yeah.
Sharing your story. It is so important. I feel very close to this story for different reasons, because the result is really self-love.
Yes.
We all need more of that. And how can people find you if they want tickets for the fight September 7th?
Facebook, Instagram, through TNT Boxing Guelph, or 3 Lines Promotions too.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be there screaming loud and proud in the crowd September 7th in Hamilton. Yeah. And I wish you a extremely successful, fun, and vicious fight.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
So stay tuned, guys, because we have some... What are we doing today? House music. What's the theme?
1968.
1968 is the theme.
The first hour, yeah.
Give me the mic, which is...
Yeah, okay.
Which is following up, and if you haven't already signed into iLive Radio, we have many different programs that run throughout the week, DJ-based programs, different genres of music, different interview style programs throughout the week, and it's just, we support independent artists, and you will learn a lot of what's happening, what's on the scene. We also have different shows that we promote once a month. Soul Fest happens, and just log in. It's just full of great, up-to-date, amazing music, vibes. Stay tuned. Peace out.
Almost. You got about 40 odd seconds left. But just want to remind folks that the iLive, the Soul Fest Lounge, thank you, is it's not on. It's supposed to be on last night, and we had to cancel it due to unforeseen circumstances. So it's on again next month. Just keep checking your Facebook page to see when that's going to come through.
Soul Fest Lounge. It's actually